Battle of Little Bighorn. Going to talk about the three participants first. Obviously, with an event this big, these weren't the only three people that were involved, but they were more or less your leaders. We have General George Armstrong Custer, we have Sitting Bull, and we have Crazy Horse. Let's start with Custer. Civil War veteran, highly decorated, fought at First Battle of Bull Run, defeated Jeb Stuart's cavalry at Gettysburg, and he was also at Appomattox Courthouse for the surrender. This shows you that he was pretty high-ranking in the Army and was pretty decent at his job. After the war, he went to Texas as part of the Reconstruction efforts. We spoke about this. This was when Union troops were sent down to the South to babysit until the Southern states did the three things they needed to do for Reconstruction. After that, he was sent west to fight the natives. Custer was an egomaniac. An egomaniac is a person that loves themselves a lot. Difference between an egomaniac and someone that's confident. Confidence isn't bad. It's when you believe in yourself. An egomaniac is when you have such confidence that you can do no wrong. You think you're the best thing ever. I think we can see it in the picture. His confidence is shining through. His job that day was to chase down and locate the Sioux and Cheyenne who were refusing to go on to reservations. He led the 7th Cavalry. This is important here. His job that day was to locate the natives that had left the reservation and to take them back. What we're going to see he did was completely different from that. Next, we have Sitting Bull. He was a holy man. He was a medicine man. He was the leader of the Sioux. The way Native American tribes worked is they didn't have elected leaders. The people that came to lead were older people that over time proved themselves. They were admired and they were looked up to. Prior to the Battle of Little Bighorn, he had led numerous raids against white settlers and the U.S. Army. So when Little Bighorn rolls around, he's not a warrior anymore. He's not a soldier. But he proved himself on the battlefield on different occasions. Once the government decided to put the natives onto reservations, Sitting Bull refused. He didn't think that this was in his people's interest. And they basically said, we're going to do what we've been doing. We're not going onto your reservation. Legend had it that Sitting Bull had a vision prior to the battle in which he sees the Sioux defeating the army. He didn't fight that day. He was older, which leads us to Crazy Horse. Crazy Horse was a famous Sioux warrior. Following the massacre at Sand Creek, which we learned about, Crazy Horse helped lead an attack on a U.S. Army regiment, killing 80 U.S. soldiers. This was in retaliation for what happened at Sand Creek. It was known as the Fetterman Massacre. At the Battle of Little Bighorn, Crazy Horse played a major role in the fighting, although it is unclear if he was actually leading the native warriors. In battle, without getting into too much detail, when natives went into battle, they viewed it more as kind of a one-on-one thing where they would locate a person on the battlefield and they would go after them. They weren't huge into strategy and tactics and things like that. It was more individualistic. So the Battle of Little Bighorn. June 1876, Custer is given orders to put the Sioux and Cheyenne onto a reservation following the discovery of gold in the Black Hills. So again, the orders were to locate and take them back to the reservation. At the time, this was Montana territory. Custer, what he does, instead of just locating and taking them back, he orders an attack. So I think this is where his ego came into play. He gave orders that day to attack the natives, not realizing that the natives had a force of 1,500 to 1,800 warriors. He's going to be outnumbered. Some historians estimated that there were over 15,000 natives at the village that he attacked. And as mentioned, led by Sitting Bull. So what happened, again, without going into too much detail, that morning he split his troops up into two different groups. The first group went out first, and they were led by a man named Marcus Reno. They fought first, and they were the much larger group. Many of them survived. So if you were with Reno that morning, you had a chance of surviving. They basically started attacking the village first, and then Custer was going to come around from a different direction and attack from a different direction to kind of catch them off guard. Reno gets in there and starts fighting, and he quickly realizes that they are outnumbered, so they flee. They take off because they know they're going to get slaughtered. Anyway, Custer takes the second group. There were about 210 men with him that day. all of the 210 will die. So in the end, the Sioux and the Cheyenne annihilated the U.S. forces, killing 268 total, including Custer and 2 of his brothers who were fighting with him, and another 55 were wounded. History remembers it as the Battle of Little Bighorn, or some people call it Custer's Last Stand. So there's no photographs of the battle. This is kind of a depiction of it. This is a picture of the battlefield today. You can visit it, and you can kind of get a little bit of perspective. So if you look at this, there's some trees down here. The other side of the trees, you can't see it. There's a river along here. It was called the Little Bighorn River. Anyway, the Sioux village was over here where my cursor is, all up and down this riverbank. And again, they think there were 15,000 people. So what happened was when Custer went in, he attacked from this direction. You can kind of tell, but this is all going downhill. So he crossed the river, gets into the village, starts attacking, realizes we're outnumbered here, crosses back across the river, but there were only 1 or 2 places to cross, so it slowed them down. And then they start coming up this hill, which is actually really, really steep, into this area where you can kind of see the gate now. By the time they get up here, the Sioux have them surrounded, and from there it was essentially over with. They were absolutely slaughtered. The two